This sucks. Boo!
Welcome to the show, everyone. It's me, Matt, and Felix with you, and along with a very special guest today. Now, the last time we had this guest on, Trump had just become president, and we had begun a 4-year journey to see just how insane he could make everyone. Now, Biden is president, and we're all assured that the worst has been prevented from happening and things can go back to normal. Despite this, on the left and right, basically everybody feels defeated, exhausted, and most importantly, like nothing we say or do has any effect on the politics that govern us or how our lives are playing out. Catastrophes keep happening, and daily evidence mounts up that absolutely no one in charge wants to or even can do anything to help. There's a sense of paralysis among both the people and the powerful that nothing can seem to change. In the age of the individual, none of us seem to be able to get out of our own heads. Well, at least there is a new film series that attempts to explain just how we got here. Adam Curtis, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Adam, at the end of our last interview 4 years ago, you posed a question that has stayed with me, or haunted me, you might say, ever since then. It was essentially, you asked, do you really want change? Because real change requires the possibility that you yourself will also be changed. This new series, Can't Get You Out of My Head, An Emotional History of the Modern World, seems to me to be a continued exploration of that question. So, Adam, what is it that all of us can't seem to get out of our own heads?
I mean, I would still ask you that same question today, actually.
Yeah.
Do you really want change? Because it seems to me what marked out those 4 years you've just talked about was, on the one hand, inside everyone's heads was continual chaos, fury, hysteria, on both the left and the right. But actually, if you look at what happened during those last 4 years, both in your country and in mine, in real terms, actually nothing happened. None of what Trump promised happened. He promised to come in and get rid of the corruption in Washington. He would drain the swamp. He promised to end the horrible foreign wars that were killing people needlessly. He promised to bring the factories back. He promised to build a wall. None of that happened. So he failed completely. Yet at the same time, those who opposed Donald Trump and those who opposed Brexit in my country failed to come up with an alternative which has, to put it bluntly, changed the world. And so we're sort of back where we started, which makes me, just as a skeptical journalist, what was all that about then? If they didn't manage to change anything, either side, I'm not talking just about the left and the Liberals, I'm talking about the right as well. They both failed. Why? And the question I set out to answer in these films is it something to do with a fear of change, or is it something that they didn't understand about change? And that's what I wanted to examine.
We'll talk about the whole history and a lot of things you go into here, but just as one recent event, as kind of an aside, how annoyed are you that I'm presuming that this series was pretty much in the can before you could edit in video footage of the Capitol Hill storming, of just people breaking into Congress to overthrow a corrupt government and then basically just kind of walking around live streaming themselves, taking selfies and whatnot? Because when I saw that on CNN, I could just hear Aphex Twin or Nine Inch Nails or some vague industrial ambient music in the background.
I would have probably put old traditional music in it.
Yakety sax.
I mean, I could have edited it in. I didn't, because I thought that, in a way, what was really interesting about that was the hysterical reaction to it.
Yeah.
I mean, that is not to say that it wasn't a very sad moment, because people died, and that's horrible. And it was a sort of very sad sense of something having gone completely wrong. I mean, what I really thought about it, but I didn't want to do it, because then you get caught by the Trump trap, which is what, to be honest, I think all liberals do, is that actually really what it represented was something terribly sad also on the part of the people who were protesting. I saw it from my perspective, my country, or my society, as people who 4 years before believed, as I said just now, Trump was going to really change things, and he hadn't done anything. And there was a sort of sad fury to it all. So when they got in there, they didn't even really trash it. They just wandered around between the guide ropes, and it felt as well as the sadness of people being killed, it also felt that they realised they had failed too. And I just thought there was a melancholy to it, really. I mean, to be honest, as I watch Your Country from here, I see a terrible melancholy on both sides, that they've just both given up now. They don't know how to change things. And there's just a sort of, I don't know, a slump. And they're waiting for something new. That's how I see it. The great hidden truth about the world is that we made this world. And if we made it, then we can make it differently. And I find that really thrilling. I love that idea because we've been persuaded that we can't. Complexity theory, psychology, all those things now tell us we're weak, uncertain, and you can't do anything. But the truth is, which is really what I'm trying to demonstrate in these films, is we did make this world together. We all did. And, it's our responsibility for having been individuals that corroded the power of the politicians. It's the politicians' fault for having given up on the idea that you actually can challenge those in power. We did this together. And if we did that together, we can make it different together. And I think that's really quite thrilling. But the way to do that is someone's got to come along and say, yes, you can still be an individual, but you can actually work together to create something beyond this. And I think that will happen. If it doesn't, then the horrible nationalisms and the old myths of the past are going to come back. But you don't do it by telling people they're stupid. You have to go and talk to those people who voted for Donald Trump and voted for Brexit, even if they're racist. They're not racist because they're just... Racism doesn't come out of nowhere. It comes because they're frightened and scared and angry. You've got to go and talk to those people. And you've got to do it. And the only person I ever saw do it was Bernie Sanders. He went and talked to people after Donald Trump was elected. And I thought that was quite right. Really good. If you can't change the world just by talking to each other and producing radical culture.
What did John Brennan say the other day?
Oh, yeah, I'm ashamed to be a white male.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Well, I must say, to Claire's point, I'm increasingly embarrassed to be a white male these days. Light of what I see of my other white males saying. But it just shows that with very few exceptions, like Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, there are so few Republicans in Congress who value truth, honesty, and integrity. And so they'll continue to gaslight the country the way that Donald Trump did.
A guy who's killed, like, thousands of people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Total
your
psycho.
problem.
Just fucking incinerated. Just fucking, like, burned, like, Pakistani children alive for being near the cell phone signature of the wrong guy. And he's just like, I'm ashamed of my gender.
I mean, this is exactly, though, like, what this stuff exists for, is to be like, is so that people are like, oh, no, you can't help that, and ignore the fact that there are all the horrible things he did do. It's like a bait and switch, and I think that's exactly why all of these sort of, like, self-flagellation gestures exist, so that to distract people from the actual awful things they did. And it's like, that's the thing that you're ashamed of. I mean, it's the same thing with the Cuomo stuff. It's like, yeah, ew, but Jesus Christ, he's done some worse things.
There has to be some sort of pantomime of humanity there. Like, there has to be something you're ashamed of, or else then you're like Trump, who just says, I've never made a wrong decision or done anything bad in my life. And that just, it chokes in the throat for people who pride themselves on being, acculturated and to have absorbed, manners more than anything. Like, it's impolite to be that be that brazen about your horror that you're doing.
You see that with the rest of the quote too, which he says, "I'm increasingly embarrassed to be a white male these days with what I see other white males say, with very few exceptions, like Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger. There are so few Republicans in Congress who value truth, honesty, and integrity." Like, the second half of that quote is honestly just as good as the first.
I'm ashamed of all white men except for Liz Cheney. Is that what he said?
I honestly feel like they were having a meeting at the Eagle's Nest, or like the repurposed Nazi base in Antarctica, and they were like, "Listen, everyone's making fun of Andrew Cuomo for saying that all these women were hotter than Lisa." John, you have to do something. You have to do something more embarrassing to take the heat off. And I think this is like red meat. This is like, when I saw this, I was like, this is like a Daily Caller paraphrase or something, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this is just so perfectly like annoying, like shitty liberal. Like, why is this guy even on MSNBC? This guy should be in fucking prison. But no, it happened. And I think that's why.
I had a good, because I was not keeping abreast of the news at all, and then I had to look this stuff up, but I had a good interaction, or rather observation. I did not interact. I was like David Attenborough. I did not interfere at a very rural gas station, and there was a guy pumping his gas, and he was on his phone, and he was talking about, I think checks, like checks coming in, and then he was getting increasingly irritated, and at some point he goes, "What the fuck is the Charliamentarian?" And I'm like, "Sir, you are not wrong. That is the correct response."
Yeah,
What the fuck is a
completely right.
Charliamentarian?
That is the completely right response to any of this. Like, yeah, no, I've never. This is a new one there, but I mean, like, I know it's a position, but we can't do it because the Charliamentarian said so. That's a new? They haven't tried that one in my lifetime.
Yeah,
No,
they're pulling
it's
up the
literally.
new
I
stuff.
was like, "Wait a minute," and I was like going back to like 8th grade social studies, and I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I know what that is," but also like a little, mostly because it doesn't matter and who cares, and it's kind of like, the queen owning the swans here. It's a nice little tradition that we keep around, like a knick-knack or something. But why in the fuck would the Charliamentarian be in charge of anything?
And the thing is, you don't have to know. Somebody will tell you. Somebody will painstakingly explain to you exactly why this matters. But it doesn't change anything. It sure as shit doesn't change the calculus of people who are going to have to go and vote in the midterms and in 2024. They're not part of this psychodrama that you've created. And so
Matt,
all you could do is soothe yourself by tales of the parliamentarian and their powerful role, their wizard-like role, the psychic energy that they expend that keeps the fucking building of the Capitol intact and not collapsing around everyone's ears.
By the way, though, Matt, I have, like, in my just cursory readings of this, I didn't even find any painstaking descriptions. What I found were delighted descriptions. So, like, oh, well, actually, like, they have been dying to write an explainer about the Charliamentarian.
Oh, absolutely.
They are so fucking delighted. They're like sports weirdos who are really interested in rule changes that made flopping easier or behind the back passing or whatever. Like it's literally like nerds rules or rules nerds like love nerds rules. So like they're so delighted by the Charliamentarian suddenly gets his speaking role.
And you can tell people about it. You can painstakingly correct your nephew on Facebook, and it will accomplish nothing. But neither will yelling at them either about
with
it.
a mouth that wouldn't melt butter. Just well, I understand it's difficult, but it actually makes a lot of sense. You see, and it's like, shut the fuck up.
It's a busy box. It's just a thing for people to pretend that they're helping along at home, like when the like a decoder ring ad from the fucking Red Ryder BB gun.
I imagine that you guys, having lower IQs than me, did not enjoy this movie as I did, but I've prepared a review.
Oh hell yes! School us.
Spit.
Okay.
Spit.
Growing up is filled with adventures, but just as often misadventures. Everyone remembers that time they first associated due to mids and believed that they were Jesus Christ. It's something everyone has experienced while coming of age, but it's usually just one and done. Most of us aren't lucky to feel that again. That's what I thought until Me, You Madness. This movie is a tortoise force. It is the only movie that has ever put me in a ketamine-like dissociative state where I believed I could channel the spirits of my ancestors through my Logitech G Pro wireless mouse. From the moment Miss Linton bursts on screen and issues a monologue that was actually written by Garth Ennis after he suffered a gunshot wound to the head, I knew I was in for something special. Even with its gratuitous fourth wall breaks, the mentally taxing dialogue, and bizarre choices both in direction and plot, this is a movie about love. It's about what happens when one of those weird rat-faced LA guys that has an 8-pack and is secretly 38 bangs a woman who is completely insane and a billionaire, like the real Louise Linton. Many of our listeners' brothers are the rat-faced LA resident. And even though they've never sold their script or become an actor, the parents still like them more. And they could watch this movie to learn how to connect with that guy, to find out what his likes and dislikes and passions are. I don't want to spoil this movie too much, so I recommend that you get a disposable CBD vape that gets you high because you're the only social worker who is drug tested. You are my social worker who is significantly younger than me, alarmingly younger than me. I'm recommending this to you, my social worker. You got to smoke that vape that will be outlawed in 3 weeks. Get yourself your favorite meal that you love to cook. We all know it. A big bowl of rice that you cooked wrong. It is noticeably half raw and hurts your enamel to chew. And put on Me You Madness and let your body die.
Wow.
The Felix
I
Press gives it 100 out of 100 stars, our highest rating.
Just look into Louise Linton just a little bit, because I was thinking there was another story there maybe, and lo and behold, there definitely is. Under the controversy section of her Wikipedia, there's a whole thing about how she wrote a memoir called In Congo's Shadow about the gap year she did as a 19-year-old in Zambia, where she was literally like the Instagram girl, like posing next to an African child with like the caption, like, hashtag their soul is mine or something like that. But I just want to read here. This is from the NPR. Sorry, it says a self-published memoir about a British actress's gap year in Zambia has come under fire this week. Citizens of Zambia, along with other Africans and aid workers, are using social media to highlight the factual errors they're calling and the condescending tone about life and culture in the country.
She's Jenna Maroney.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, she's like if Jenna Maroney married into the highest level of government.
Well, the difference is, though, Jenna Maroney is, she grew up on a houseboat in Florida.
Right.
Louise Linton's Scottish, and her family owns a castle.
Yeah, no, that is an important distinction, that has an ancient bloodline. And I would argue it informs a lot of the choices she makes and ways she behaves.
I just want to quote here from the book. Here's an excerpt being quoted by NPR. This is Louise Linton writing in her memoir, In Congo's Shadow. I mean, I guess she's talking about King Leopold or something. Which is probably related to her fucking family.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, literally, probably her great uncle.
So it says here, quote, "My innocent dreams of teaching the villagers English or educating them about the world now seem ridiculously naive. With a cheery smile, I'd waved goodbye to my dad and jumped on a plane to Africa without researching anything about its tumultuous political history or realizing that
The history of Africa. I love her, dude.
It's a land of contrast, I'll say that.
or realizing that my destination was just miles from war-torn Congo. I still sometimes feel out of place. Whenever that happens, though, I try to remember a smiling, gap-toothed child with HIV whose greatest joy was to sit on my lap and drink from a bottle of Coca-Cola."
Oh, my God.
A smiling, gap-toothed child with HIV whose greatest joy in life was to sit on my lap and sip Coca-Cola.
I'm imagining that she's got the glass bottle with the fucking a baby nipple on the end and she's just sucking on it.
She fucking rocks.
Yeah, I agree with everything Morrissey says, including England for the English.
That's right.
Okay.
That's not racist. It's I don't really like his music at all, but as a political
I'm not into his
commentator,
music at all.
Yeah,
His music's confusing.
I don't get what he's talking about, but
what the hell is he talking about?
what do you mean every day is like a Sunday? There are 7 days in a week.
What?
Yeah, what are you talking about, man?
You've been doing bad 1990s stand-up comedy? Okay, the boy
so
with
this
the
guy-
thorn in his side. What boy? Okay, what boy are we talking about here?
If he's got a thorn in his side, better take him to hospital or in hospital, as you'd say.
Deedle.
The Queen's dead. The Queen's dead. That's news to me. How'd you find out first?
Seems like the Queen's still alive to me. Last I checked. That's the worst genre of stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
I remember when I was starting, there were people there were white guys doing Biggie, bits about Biggie songs from 1993.
Yeah.
They're like, if you got this isn't Biggie, but if you got a $50 bill, put your hand up. Okay, I don't have that much money on me.
Sucks dick.
If you got a $20 bill, put your hand up. Okay, I think I can manage that. I am launching an app, actually. Since early in COVID, I've been developing an app with some developers in India. It's the Adam Friedland app, where the Adam Friedland fans can get the latest news. They can chill with each other. It's just me, you know. I can give them post selfies and stuff for them, see what they think.
And also your
hate
political
speech,
beliefs won't be censored.
We're gonna be we're gonna be tightly monitoring hate speech.
There's no
Sounds
room
good.
for hate in the Adam Friedland fan community.
No, you have to be nice.
That sounds good.
And for $14.99 a month, you can get Adam Friedland Plus, which is the premium service on there.
Okay. Well, what are the inducements to go AF Plus?
Early access to my acoustic singer-songwriter originals that I've been working on. Kind of like a folk country situation.
Ooh.
And you know, I'm coming up with some other big surprises. So we're gonna try to get that on the Android and the Apple store pretty soon.
That sounds great.
Well, I hope you're not censored by big tech.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and there's gonna be a lot of ads. Okay, and just just X out of the ads. And you'll find the content, but you gotta get. It's kind of like when you're like illegally streaming like an athletic event.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of pop-ups.
There's going to be a lot of X's
ads
that look
just,
like it's a closed window, but it actually takes you to another link. You just got to find the right closed window.
It takes you to another link.
And just
yeah,
keep
if it
pressing
shoots you over to Safari, just get out of Safari, go back to the Adam Friedland app, and just be persistent.
People do need to give their social security number to join the Adam Friedland app, right? I mean, that's for safety, just to make sure there's no hate speech.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's just so I can. I'm going to give all of them to the police, but then if someone does something naughty, then they'll have it like on speed dial. I can report people, but yeah, you're going to have to give up some sensitive information.
I mean, yeah, well, that is how to keep online communities safe and hate free, and it's good. I applaud you for your efforts, Adam.
Yeah, a lot of these social media platforms are very dangerous these days, and I'm working on developing the safest social media platform imaginable. So safe that you can't even really post on it.
That sounds good.
That sounds great. But you can get the latest Adam Friedland news, though.
You can just like. That's all you can do is like me.
And so then we get to David Smick. And like I said, like I can understand, like even if you're a dumb person wanting to see a movie where, like, you know, someone like genuinely important and consequential people like Larry Summers and Alan Greenspan like share their ideas on what's wrong with America and how to fix it. But then this Smick asshole just keeps showing up, and the idea that anyone would fucking care about, like, he starts telling you about his life, and he's like, my grandparents were Norwegian immigrants, and they didn't have it so easy when they came to this country. And then I swear to God, Felix,
that was called the Middle Passage. It was Norwegians to America.
And he goes,
Great Migration.
He goes, why are we wasting so much energy on hate instead of doing amazing things? And then he goes, I'm sensitive to the
Persimmon Phil killed the wrong squarehead.
Then he goes, this absolute fucking hog man goes, talking about like the, very serious and like terrible misery that is like afflicting so many people in this country. He goes, I'm sensitive to the notion of change because when I was 14, our house burned down and I lost all my baseball cards. He says, I lost my baseball cards.
That killed me. No, that killed me. That killed me because like the idea of like being like, my house burned down and everything's been fucked since. It's like awesome.
I mean, Felix, that happened
like,
to you.
That's, dude, want to know why I have such a dark outlook on life? Because I lost everything. I lost everything as a 4-year-old when my house burned down. And he was, it's like everything about that's great. Like that entire segment, I love it because it's like, look, you may think I'm a pretty impressive guy, but actually, my great-grandparents came from Norway, and so they had an immigrant's path. My great grandfather ate too much grain in the village, and it tricked him into sailing to America. But then, yeah, it's like, look, I understand like how bad it is to like lose your job, and you're like your son dies in the Iraq War, and you're addicted to pills, and you don't even remember the last time you looked forward to anything. Everyone in your town is like dying or leaving. There are no even markers for your own life anymore. I lost a Roger Maris card when I was 14 when my house burned down because I tried to make Drosty's hot chocolate. Langone's thing is completely insane, but he does something later in the movie that I find, it's like they talk about giving up the game. So I'm telling you the NYU
Yeah,
thing.
the NYU thing.
Where
This was incredible.
Yeah, where
this was fucking
so
unbelievable.
he goes to NYU medical school, and he's like, I've been doing philanthropy for 37 eons. Like, just talking about all the bullshit charities he does. But he goes to NYU, and there was a big speech, and he's like, NYU Medical Center will now be called Langone Medical Center, and everyone in this class right now, you'll have no student debt. And they all cheer for him, and he's like, that was the greatest moment of my life when they all gave me their life force. And it's like, but that's it. That's why private charity exists. Because it's like you could just as easily not make medical school not cost $200,000. You could just do that. You could just make it so that like, Langone is like, oh, they won't be weighed down by this debt. They won't have this awful onus on them. And it's like, no, there's no reason for it to cost that much. You just decided it should cost that much, and now you get to be a good person because you cut off some of your like gold hide and toss it to them. Just the cushions in your couch, like a few $1 million, and now they're indebted to you forever. Now they love you.
Yep.
The thing you actually want. You're a fucking it's like one of the most darkest things I've seen. It's like me and all my fucking child zoo owning friends made this, among other things we did, made this thing made college education and postgraduate education always a 6-figure endeavor. But, you know, maybe if you're lucky, I'll pay off like 2 years of classes if you can rename the entire building after me and pledge fealty to me in the afterlife.
This shit is the public-facing side of the Epstein ritual cannibalism, where they consume the flesh, and this is literally consuming the souls of the people that they are dominating.
He says,
like, you will love me for my destruction of you, for my domination of you.
I mean, it's gonna be tough to do the show without Felix, but I think we'll get by.
Yeah, I guess so. We'll make do.
Somebody say make do.
Who's this? Wait, who's this?
It's Uncle Lou again.
Oh, it's Lou.
Hey, Lou
wow.
Pearlsmith.
It's our friend Lou Pearlsman. He's back again. Lou, how's it going?
Oh, you know, odds and ends. I put a few things in the bowl, and they always seem to leave when my grandkids come by.
Lou, you have some more fashion thoughts to share with us?
Yeah, I have a little bit of a news peg for you guys. Probably not the first time you're getting paid for this job.
Whoa.
Oh. Oh man, I know it's always a joy to have Lou on. You know, the Barbs, they fly fast and furious. But Lou, speak on it. What do you got for us?
This is from my nephew. He's the head of Lenox Hill DSA. He's upset about this Kristen Cinema woman. So I thought I'd help him out a bit because, you know, it's my second favorite kid sister's kid. So we're gonna let it rip on the Senatrix from Arizona. Nice leather dress you were wearing when you got sworn in, honey. Go back to when The Matrix first came out, and maybe you could fit into one of those.
Ooh.
I never liked that meat is murder business, but now I feel I have to call Morrissey for the first time since '95. Maybe it's points.
People are unhappy. People do not like this Kristen Cinema. They're very angry at her.
They're fed up with her.
They're mad about, you know, when she did the thumbs down, and she was wearing a gray turtleneck and a box split skirt. Sweetheart, I'm sure they love this in Tucson, but you look like a Duke adjunct going to a department head's funeral.
Annihilated.
Yeah, destroyed.
Her look here screams that you keep trying to get the bigwigs to leave their wives, but the second they see you, they want to shtup their spouses for the first time since Clinton.
Oh man, I would not like to be Kristen Cinema right about now. That's a thumbs down from Lou Pearlman on Kristen Cinema's whole aesthetic.
I wouldn't want to either. So when she's wearing that white dress and cape number she wore to the impeachment, she looks like a superhero. The only problem is her power is she makes all the men disappear. I tell her to get on her invisible plane, but no one needs to see that. You look like you're attending a Montessori funeral.
Oh man, can we get Felix back for the rest of the show?
I'm back.
Okay, all right.
So I did a form of LSD that they sell at gas stations, and I feel good again. I feel right. Did anything happen?
She's been conclusively annihilated.
What, did she get like Me Too'd or something?
She was compromised to a permanent end by Lou Pearlman.
Oh no, even she doesn't deserve that.
During an address Wednesday afternoon to Irish Americans, Biden mixed in Irish blessings and old family yarns, meandering into a tale about his Aunt Gertie. She did two things better than
Gertie.
She did.
You could write it. You could, but why would you even bother?
She did two things better. She did two things better than anyone else. He said, one is she was the best back scratcher in the world. The best back scratcher in the world. That's not a skill that you can be good or bad at.
Yeah,
unless your nails are really fucked
that
up.
finely enough to determine world's best.
So he goes, yeah, there's two things she did better than anyone else in the world. She was the best back scratcher, and two, no offense to the Greeks, but she made the best rice pudding in the world. And it's just like, okay, like this line is like, no offense to the Greeks, but she made the best rice pudding in the world. This is the first time I've ever heard of rice pudding as being associated with Greek people as like a traditional Greek thing.
It's apparent. No way. I mean, it's probably because like it's in Greek. I think he associates it with Greek diners. And so it's probably because like his brain is dying. He's reverting. I mean, he's talking about his Aunt Gertie, for fuck's sake. That is because it's like, you know how we were saying that his presentation is reminding people of a simpler, better time in their lives so that they accede to their body, their social order shutting down. His body is doing that to him and putting him back into a place that is more comforting and loving. Like when Aunt Gertie used to scratch his back and feed him rice pudding. And yes, he probably has a memory of like getting a hand job in a Greek diner in fucking Dover, Delaware, 1956. And he saw like rice pudding on the menu when he came.
Well, he saw rice pudding after she got done with the hand.
Yes. Yes, also. And he has this like visceral relationship between the two. And now every time he hears of the Greeks, he thinks of rice pudding. And when he thinks of rice pudding, he thinks of the Greeks.
I love the idea that like he associates anything that's like tangentially related to something a Greek person done with like Greek people as a whole. And I would just love it if like he knew about Stav and he'd be like, no offense to the Greeks, but I used to be a pretty fat guy who liked having sex a lot.
No offense to the Greeks, but I have one of the best bird collections in the world, man.
My Aunt Gertie, she had more parrots than anyone. No offense to the Greeks. He spent all her money on the parrots, Jack. We had no money for food or rice pudding. That's why she was scratching us all the time. We were hungry. That's the struggle. Aunt Gertie. No,
Aunt Gertie goes on. So if you have an Aunt Gertie, you're so fucking old.
Yeah.
No, you're ancient.
So when you see a godlike alien cooperating with heroes out of fables and Greek myths, you might not find it so hard to imagine more productive collaborations in the real world. These teams don't just bring everybody together to work for the common good. They also make room for people from vastly different cultures and experiences, and they triumph when members learn to respect each other's abilities and perspectives. What are groups such as the Justice League or the Avengers but non-governmental organization with more capes and fewer acronyms?
Oh my!
No, now more than ever, we need stories.
No, they're not. By the way, no, they are not. S.H.I.E.L.D., for example, is literally a government agency.
This is the
They are paramilitaries of the U.S. empire.
This is the most ideological
Which, of
thing
course, is also what NGOs are, but yes, the ideology.
This is the most ideological thing I've like. Human Rights Watch are the Avengers. Like, holy shit. I'm fucking short-circuiting. That's incredible. That's like this is like a liberal hadith.
Yes.
This is amazing.
Yeah, and you know what? That's honestly one of the few, useful things about the Marvel movies because they are just such hegemonic Trek, but they at least are fairly straightforward in saying that, yeah, superheroes, if they existed, would be part of the state apparatus. That there is no, like, the DC fantasy of Superman and those guys is that there is some sort of authority and power beyond even the state, like things like justice mean something to it. Whereas the Marvel movies tell you pretty outright, no, there's just America. And then we are people who have like the most technology to fight on behalf of America.
I am notorious for my finger blasting technique, where that's the scientific name. I don't know why people are laughing. That's what my doctor calls it when he tells me to stop doing this. But,
got the rheumatiz.
You put it in there. You want to kind of like put your ring finger over your middle finger because this gives you hypertrophy in the forearm, like the forearms. And you put it in there, and then what I do is I put it in there. I make sort of like an ampersand shape, and then I pull it out and I lick my fingers off. And I go, ooh, that's the stuff. And
that's good stuff.
And there have been a lot of articles written about me in babe.com about how good I am at that. They're sort of the opposite of these Z's and sorry articles. They're like, local man does awesome thing.
This is Snopes.com.
What?
Did Biden fall on stairs to Air Force One? Rating, mostly false.
Excuse me?
What?
We all saw
that
video.
shit.
We all saw
I watched that shit. He fell. His ass fell down. Three
Snopes
times.
is gaslighting us. Snopes is
And
gaslighting
it says
us
here,
now.
mostly false. And it says, what's true? President Biden appears to have stumbled and slightly lost his footing while climbing the stairs onto Air Force One. He did, he fell
slightly.
3 times. It was not slightly.
Again and again and again.
Yeah, but this was and it goes, what's false? President Biden did not fall completely. The president gained his footing and composure moments after a brief stumble.
President Kennedy had a brief issue finishing the motorcycle balance, but was mostly able to finish it and recover.
The back of President Kennedy's skull took a slight tumble.
This is not an original observation, but you really can trace the degradation of internet culture in the way that Snopes went from a very handy source to find out, like, is Mikey the kid from the Life cereal? Did he actually explode from eating Pop Rocks or not? And just be able to clear through some of the, the bric-a-brac of urban legends to now it's just DNC press releases.
It's just pure propaganda.
Actually, Obamacare is better than Medicare for all. That's mostly true. Actually, it turns out that the whole thing about some sort of objective criteria, like determining the validity of a truth statement. No, we're here to just kind of tell you how you should feel about the news.
A watershed Snopes moment for me was Googling whether or not Brian Peppers was dead. So that's how far we've fallen.
I hope not. I love those X-Men movies.
We got a hint of this in, when Trump visited the UK and was like, oh, look at all the shade Queen Elizabeth is doing. And it's like, yeah, they've never met anyone as awful as Donald Trump. A racist sex guy.
Who hangs out with Jeffrey
Epstein? A racist guy who's kind of a pedophile or something. That's the first they've ever seen of someone like that. That's not at all what every man in that family is fucking like.
This was didn't this interview happen about a week or so after the report came out? Just apropos of nothing, that Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip travel with blood.
Yeah, blood bags.
With their own supply of blood, their blood.
Problem?
As in they bought it.
Bloodborne's real.
I don't know who doesn't do that. All my homies do that.
I mean, what are people if not blood bags? I mean, your body is in a sense like a portable blood transportation vehicle.
Yeah, so why is it so messed up to take your own blood out of your body and then you're putting it back later?
0% chance that it's their blood, by the way.
That's bodily autonomy.
Absolute lie.
Yeah.
My body, my choice.
They bought that blood on the fucking black market. They got it at at Jimmy Savile Row. That's where they went down to buy that.
That's like what I thought. It's like limited hangout. It's like, oh no, we travel with blood. Definitely our own.
Yeah.
My
The blood's their own, silly. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not from orphans.
Says Joseph LeConte is the director of the B. Kenneth Simon Center for American Studies at the Heritage Foundation. He is the author of A Hobbit, A Wardrobe, and a Great War, which is being made into a documentary film. Fuck off!
you.
Fuck off!
God.
Fuck off!
I was making myself mad the other day thinking of like NRO, like Heritage Foundation, and titles for articles, and I was that's worse than any of the ones I came up with. I got as far as the jouissance of billiards.
And this person goes on to write, in the lead up to the release of the Snyder Cut, many critics observed that the film succeeded due to a group of fans who represent a regressively traditional view of what fandom is. It's difficult to find a similar level of hype and breathless anticipation attaching to a campaign for a movie that explicitly catered to women in fandom. For instance, imagine if the 50 Shades of Grey fandom, full of older female romance fans, suddenly began demanding a new 60 Shades of Grey with all their consumerist might. Would the media's reaction be one of breathless excitement, or would it be one of condescending disbelief, tinged with mockery? Okay, first of all, the media's reaction to all the Snyder fans was one of condescending mockery and disbelief.
Absolutely, these guys were terrorists.
Yeah, but you know what? Like the 50 Shades of Grey fandom or the Twilight fandom that she talks about, like if they wanted changes, like, just then work for it.
And
Get out there and start harassing.
And it's like, oh no, they're gonna be condescending to us. Fuck it, suck it up. Do you want 60 Shades of Grey or not?
Yeah.
Do you want the Charlie Hunnam remake that you're all secretly desiring? Because I don't know if you guys know that, but he was the original Christian Grey.
Yeah. Charlie Human.
That was probably a big deal with Sons of Anarchy Autism Moms, one of the best Facebook groups ever.
Yeah, they were having a time.
Yeah, no, it's like, quit crying, get to work. I don't really, I don't really
work
care.
in the refs here. Just get on your grind if you want to see this shit. Also, I'm sorry, like a lot of this stuff is geared towards that. Like it's a hive mind. The reason the Snyder fandom stands out is because that's like the undigested lump of like people who take nerdery and some sort of like hostile social dysfunction to be the same thing, and they want to preserve that. They want to keep it. They want to keep nerdery authentic, and so they're gonna have to band together and grind to get what they want because they can't depend on everybody saying, "Oh, good, these people they're trying to advocate a new, more inclusive rubber man." It's like, no, they want white men looking pissed as shit on giant screens.
I was thinking about like this scene towards the end where Batman and Joker are having their tete-a-tete, and Batman goes, "I've been dead inside for a long time, but even I have my limits." And I'm like, that's why this movie was made. That and bisexuality. Because it's like, that makes no sense. That's so fucking stupid. It's so Facebook. It's so like, I'm the nicest guy in the world, but when I get pissed, I get quiet, and that's when I really fucking get pissed. It's like, do you have a limit to how dead you are? Like, what the fuck? But it's just like, this is the perfect movie for like that kind of imbecile. Which
really
it turns out there are a lot of.
Yeah, and they're being underserved by the Marvel movies that just don't take the stuff seriously enough.
Yeah, Marvel movies, they have nothing for, like, the message in Marvel movies is like, you should never really, it's not cool to get pissed.
Yeah, no, getting pissed is hurtful. Everyone should just be friends together.
They're made by people who have never punched drywall for people who have never punched drywall. And Snyder is different. And, and his fans are being, they're being condescendingly mocked and looked down to just because they like punching drywall. But I just have here another brilliant piece of dialogue that I had to write down. He says to Aquaman, like, sort of about how he needs to, like, stop hiding from the world and be a hero. And he says, "You take up your mother's trident." But before that, he says to him, "The Snatchers are coming from the dark place." the dark Snatchers are snatching the Motherbox. They're box snatchers, folks. There's a lot of, I don't know, how shall I put this? I don't want to say vaginal imagery in this movie, but there's a lot of vaginal themes in this movie. And I don't know how entirely intentional they are, but they are there nonetheless. I mean, we all remember the Martha moment from Batman versus Superman.
Yes, of course.
It's just mommy. It's right there. Mommy in the dark place we all came from is just sort of behind every frame of this movie. I don't know if it's a fear of that, but it is. It's something with that. There's something there.
It's if anything, this movie is an impassioned plea to the world scientists to invent a way where men can breastfeed their sons.
I mean, Steppenwolf was cast out of the dark place because he wouldn't breastfeed Darkseid Phil anymore.
Darkseid Phil.
Darkseid Phil is the bad guy of this movie.
Yeah. He can never get OBS to work. It's causing galactic pain.
I have never been particularly poor at calculating how to get things done in the United States Senate. So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway. We're going to get a lot done.
Okay. I know it was an hour-long press conference, and that was just like very short. But the number of people, journalists, I saw saying, "Well, Biden definitely he eliminated and dismissed any question that he's not up to snuff and totally on point and completely lucid." Like, I'm sorry, but in any other era, a president just fritzing out like that in national television would have been a big deal. My God, Dan Quayle misspelled potato, and it was one of 3 events that happened in that year.
No, that was a joke for like 10 years, Matt. That was Jay Leno was eating out on that like well into the Clinton administration.
But this guy made his brain just like what his brain just turned off in the middle. Like he had to blow in the cartridge in the middle of a fucking speech. That's fucked up.
That's my favorite thing that Biden does is when he's talking and he's like just completely gives up.
When he gives up, it's just like he realizes, you know what? I'm too old for this shit. I'm literally too old for this shit. It doesn't really matter. I'm president. You're gonna ignore it anyway. I know that. So whatever. It's too much work to fucking try to pull this out of my ass, especially since he has to know it's all garbage. Like, that's the thing. One of the real questions I've always had about politicians is how the hell do you just keep saying this shit over and over again that you know is pointless, that you know is totally contentless? And it's ambition, but I think at a certain point you get so old, he literally, even though he wants to be president, it's the only thing he's ever wanted, and it's just he can't muster the energy to continue saying the thing. For me, the perfect of that was the one where he goes, he's trying to say something about like Bill of Rights, life, liberty, and then he just goes, the thing.
Yeah.
That was so perfectly evocative. Like, you people know what it is. You all know the bullshit that we say. I just have to stand here and say it. So I'm tired, and just take it. Just take it from there.
Yeah, I always thought about the most disconcerting version of that would be, do you remember those interviews he was doing on Good Morning America, like after he secured the nomination, where he would go like, Trump is he's a few chopsticks short of it. I'm sorry, man. I shouldn't it was like, if anyone else did it, I'd be like, this is a guy who's going to kill himself. Like, that's so depressing. But yeah, no. People do know the thing.
We know the thing.
Yeah, we know.
He just has to stand there. He has to just be the guy. He has to be the guy that the old primary voters could see on their TV and be like, "Oh, right, Obama guy. Yeah, sure, him." That's all he needs to do.
And it's just like this sort of, it's probably, the thing is, it's probably not even coordinated. But what I mean is like the ready-made press reaction to just be like, that was a masterful performance by Joe Biden. I mean, do you remember during the debates, like nobody ever really said like, "God damn, Biden sucked" in those debates. They just sort of didn't mention it. But they were
the lying too. Like, not only was he barely lucid, he just lied flatly, and they're just like, "Yeah, who cares?" They just said that.
It just
like
seems
none of this matters.
It seems it's a case of like protesting too much, and like I don't know, like I'm half kidding here, but like I would not be surprised in the next couple of months is like. The next thing that can get you kicked off social media is talking about Joe Biden's like mental capacities, or implying that it's not up to snuff to be like the president of the United States.
Yeah,
that's ableism to say that the president should know what time of day it is.
Well, that is the scarier thing, right? It's sort of like 2 levels of fright. If you're on one level and you're like a rational person who's like not too deep into the shit, you're like, well, that's like disconcerting that he just gives up in the middle. But the real thing that scares people that no one will talk about is like, oh, that shows that like it kind of doesn't really matter who specifically is president, that it's just on autopilot and it's like it's run by other people, and that opens up a frightening question as to what the American presidency is. It's just on autopilot. How little our input matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something nobody really wants to confront. So we're all going to just agree that Grandpa's doing fine.
By the way, did you see the story about how Trump was just showing up at people's weddings at Mar-a-Lago and just grabbing the mic and just starting like ranting about how Joe is doing a terrible job with China. Do you miss me yet? And it's just like people are like, "Oh, what a lunatic!" But
yes,
like, that's the best thing that could possibly happen to you if you get married at Mar-a-Lago. You're hoping that happens. I mean, think how overjoyed that couple was to have Trump give them like a toast that doesn't mention their names or anything about, just doesn't talk about anything other than himself for an hour. I mean,
I wanted to get married at Mar-a-Lago after I saw that video. Like, that is so cool. God, I wish that were me.
Do you miss me now? Do you miss me yet? Joe's doing a terrible job. It's like, and he doesn't even know it's a wedding. He's like, who's the birthday boy? Let me give him a big smooch. Are we singing the song now? Did you blow out the candles?
He's great. Like, that's a great epilogue for him. Just being like a ghost that haunts this country club, like a friendly ghost. Who just pops up and he's like, "Where's the Durham report?"
He's like De Niro at the beginning and end of Raging Bull. You know, it's like he's that phase of his career, which is perfect for him. I mean, this is what he should have been doing all along.
And it's also like everyone in Mar-a-Lago is probably delighted to see him all the time. Like,
oh my God,
that's why the
only time you can
sign up to pay $250,000 a year to eat like fucking Swedish meatballs that they took from IKEA a week before.
That's like if a kid was to go to Disneyland and they saw like Goofy, and then Goofy took his hat off and it was actually Goofy. That's how excited they are to see Trump.
And I get it. Like, you know, I only voted for him in 2020. I didn't vote for him the first time. But like when we were at CPAC and it was just so boring, like we had that guy talking about the Jewish Thanos stones.
That was awesome.
Show that Israel's 10 million years old, and like the Alex Azar was there, and it just sucked. And then when he came on, I was so happy.
He hugged the flag. He riffed about the windmills, making it so you can't watch TV. Talked about Raisin Cane. We love him. We love Raisin.
Yeah.
The other cool thing about Mar-a-Lago, though, is that like now that he's been kicked off Twitter and like no one in the press wants to cover him anymore, the only like evidence that he's still alive are like the Instagram accounts of these bizarre women in Florida who flock to fucking Mar-a-Lago like it's Lourdes or something. Like women wearing like leopard print capes and like sunglasses from like Back to the Future 2 that look like Bic lighters or something like that. It's just, and they're just like wedging themselves in with this like hideous rictus grin, and then he's just in the background, like you said, Felix, like some ghost, like fucking Banquo of fucking he's just like around the back nine of fucking Mar-a-Lago. He's just wandering around in his dumpy, gigantic white polo shirts. And then they're all just like, he looks better than ever. And it's just like, he looks like terrible. He looks so fucking bad.
He looks like cold and wet and pink. He looks so fucking shitty. But like, no, yeah. All these women whose like skin looks flash fried are going like just traveling the world to see him.
Yeah,
what a great end for him.
Yeah, he looks like he just got out of a Ronco food rehydrator.
Yeah, he's just like everyone in Mar-a-Lago looks air fried.
All right, well, I'm ready to get into it. You guys
I am
ready
too.
For this justice?
I'm ready to dispense justice.
All right, God's justice will find our listeners today. Zach's justice.
All right.
There's two kinds of law. There's God's law and Zach's law. And this movie brings them together. It forms a synthesis. Oh, fuck. Hold on. I left my refrigerator door open. Hold on. Be back.
You better run and catch it.
This is going in the fail comp.
Absolutely.
Will Menaker biggest fails of 2021.
The fucking fridge door open like a curious grizzly bear wandering into a cabin.
That's going to be the grape stomp lady of the 2020s.
Oh,
ow.
All right, I hope we recorded all that.
I did.
All right, put it in the Phil comp. Put it in the Phil comp. All right, so you want to clap in?